Hello, my fellow nerds. How are y'all doing? This episode, I will be talking about She-Hulk, Attorney at Law on Disney Plus with spoilers. So if you haven't watched it, pause this, watch it, and then come back and listen to this podcast. I feel it's been out long enough that I'm sure people have watched it, or it already has been spoiled for you. If it has, I'm sorry. After I talk about She-Hulk, I'm going to talk about some personal things that have been kind of going on that's been kind of hindering me from being able to post episodes consistently. But now that I've kind of got everything situated, I'm going to be more consistent, and I've got this. So right now, this episode is going to be about, like I said, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. And then next week's episode is going to be about My Hero Academia. I'm super excited. So let's get it going. I am Chanel, and this is the Nerd in Texas podcast, the Rebel podcast without a real intro. I talk about movies, books, TV shows, and the occasional video game. I also give fun facts and information about your favorite actors, actresses, and fandoms. If you're a returning listener, thank you so much. You have no idea how much I appreciate every single one of you. If you are new, have a seat. I hope you enjoyed my episode and you learned something new. This episode and my next episode has actually been scheduled by From Under the Apron, a fellow podcast. I put a poll on Twitter and he said, do all three and put them in order of how I should do it. And I said, challenge accepted. I'll be leaving a link to his link tree in my podcast description so you can check out From Under the Apron podcast. So the schedule was as follows. I did Glass Onion. Now I'm doing She-Hulk, and then My Hero Academia that I have become completely obsessed with. It comes with perfect timing because it actually did have not necessarily some TikTok drama, but I stitched a TikToker who kind of was like, do adults really watch anime? And so I replied to that. If you follow me on TikTok, I also posted like a tiny clip of it on Twitter just because you're limited to how long of a video you can post on Twitter. But if you follow me on TikTok, it's Nerd in Texas Podcast. You can see my full thoughts. And so it comes perfectly timing because next week will be My Hero Academia, and I'll talk a little bit more about this TikTok issue in the next week's episode. So let's get into it. Let's get into She-Hulk. She-Hulk is very controversial, so there might be things that you agree with me about, and then there's going to be some things that are probably disagreeable, just because, like I said, She-Hulk's kind of a touchy subject. I waited a really long time to do this episode, and I actually had it written up a long time ago. But like I said, some things have been kind of coming up to where I couldn't record the episode and I couldn't get it out as soon as I wanted to. But here we go. She-Hulk is created by Jessica Gao. I think that's how you say her name. Who is known for creating episodes for a lot of shows like Lab Rats on Disney. My kids loved Lab Rats. They watched that show. They still watch that show. It drives me nuts. Kung Fu Panda, Silicon Valley, and most known for her work with Rick and Morty. We have Tatiana Maslany, I think that's how you say her name, I'm terrible with names, as Jennifer Walters, Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner and Hulk, Jamil, I know I'm saying that wrong, as Tatiana. I love her, by the way. She was in The Good Place, and that's one of my favorite shows. It was so good. Ginger Gonzaga as Nikki Ramos, Benedict Wong as Wong or Wongers. I'll explain that later. Tim Roth as Abomination, Patty Guggenheim as Madison, and it has 5.2 out of 10 rating. Rotten Tomatoes gave it an 80% average tomato meter and 33% average audience score. It did not get really good reviews. So let's see what IMDb described it as. Jennifer Walters has a complicated life as a single 30-something attorney who also happens to be a green 6-foot 7-inch superpowered Hulk. I am so sorry. I am running off of 3 hours of sleep, a breakfast taco, and a sugar-free Red Bull. I know. So many people are probably like, ugh. I get it. It's been a crazy morning. But fun fact about Tatiana Maslany is she's actually 5'4", just like me. I'm short. I'm 5'4". And she is CGI, right? They have, like She-Hulk is CGI'd. They have Malia Arya as a body double to CGI for size. And just put Tatiana Maslany's face on Malia using CGI. Because Malia is 6'5". Like, that's that's tall. That's crazy. So now I'm going to get into the show and then talk about how I feel about the show. I'm not going to get into much detail about each episode, but I will be going into detail about the first episode. So episode 1 shows her in lawyer mode when something happens and she has to Hulk out in the courtroom. Then it shows a flashback back to Jen and Bruce going on a road trip and a car accident happens. Bruce's blood gets into Jen's blood, and even though they are cousins, it's kind of weird saying that out loud. She hulks out, blacks out, wakes up at a bar, girls help her out, and as she's leaving the bar, men heckle her, and she gets angry and hulks out again. Bruce saves the day. She blacks out again and wakes up in Bruce's basement on a beach somewhere. I'm assuming Mexico. Bruce gives her the rules of being a Hulk. You can't go back to her life and live a normal life, even though she's, worked her butt off to be at a law firm. She doesn't like it and protests. Bruce tests her and makes a move that threatens her life, and she hulks out again. But Bruce is trying to calm her down. He's like, hey, it's okay, trying to calm her down. And She-Hulk, or Jen, says something like, why are you talking to me like that? Why are you talking to me like I'm a baby? And it throws Bruce off because it took him years to be able to be Hulk and Bruce at the same time. So later on, they kind of have this he kind of trains her a little bit more, and then they kind of have a huge fight where they accidentally destroy the bar that him and Tony, Iron Man, make on this beach. And I would have been so upset. I would have been more upset by that. I would have been so upset that they just destroyed this bar that him and Tony Stark built together, and Tony Stark's gone now. I would have been so upset, but that's just me. He eventually agrees to let her to go back. She goes back to being a lawyer. She's preparing for a case when a guy from the firm comes in and says something like, you aren't doing it right. You should just let me do it. You should just let me do the closing arguments. And she says something about how she, of course this guy's mansplaining her job when they both have the same education and the same training. So there's no secret that there was a lot of controversy when it came to She-Hulk. So I'm going to take the rest of this episode to go by from controversy to controversy because it actually coincides with each episode. Every time an episode aired, there was controversy about it. And it's crazy to me how Disney and whoever created She-Hulk, I feel like they anticipated the controversy because in one way or another, it was addressed in the next episode. It was weird. It was trippy. But I'm going to put it out there that I enjoyed the show. I loved it. But there are some things that irked me, that I didn't like. And one of them was how fast she mastered her being Jen and She-Hulk at the same time. And she didn't really smash anything. The only thing she smashed was Tony Stark's bar that they built on the beach. I just feel like they could have taken a little bit more time to have her be, She-Hulk, crazy She-Hulk. They could have spent at least, I don't know, one episode on her completely She-Hulking out and just Hulk smashing things. It seemed rushed. I feel like they could have spent a little bit more time on development. Because if you think about it, when you see a Hulk, whether it's Hulk, She-Hulk, you want to see the smash. You want to see you want to hear the Hulk smash. And I know the show is supposed to be about femininity, and Jen being a feminist. And the reason was women mature earlier than men, so maybe that's what happened there. They also use the excuse that, like, because she's a woman, if she let her emotions out, she gets scrutinized for it. And she even says something, because he's sitting there and he's like, you have no idea the stress that when you're a She-Hulk, you're going to have this go on and this go on, and you're going to have to be able to control your anger and control your this and control your that. And she's like, dude, I've been doing that my entire life. Women have to deal with that all the time. That kind of irked me. Like, it kind of proved the point that women are not allowed to have emotions, and we're not allowed to express our emotions, and that made it even more that she wasn't allowed to She-Hulk out because she was a woman. I know, I'm sorry. I'm starting to sound feminist. I am a feminist, but I also believe in equality. And I don't know, that just irked me. Like, let her rage, man. And like I said, I'm a feminist, but I like to consider myself a cool feminist. And this is my thought process about this. If you think back to seeing Scarlett Johansson the first time as Black Widow in Iron Man, her ability to kick ass is what made me want to be her. I feel like they took that away from this She-Hulk. They took that away from Jen. To me, that is feminism. Giving woman a role that you would normally see a man do. And if you truly think about it, they had Scarlett Johansson be a spy / bodyguard for Tony Stark, Iron Man. Like, they chose Black Widow to bodyguard Tony Stark, who didn't necessarily need one in the first place. He's Tony Stark. you get what I don't know. Some people get what I'm saying. Some people don't when I talk about that. But I feel like they robbed Jennifer Walters that chance to be able to, like, yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to see more of that. On to the next controversy is the fourth wall breaks that no one on social media wanted. Like, if you watched anything on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, whatever the case may be, no one on social media understood or wanted the fourth wall breaks that happened in She-Hulk. And this is the one thing that is comic book She-Hulk. And comic book She-Hulk is like the female version of Deadpool. And I think they just went about it the wrong way. And a lot of people know, I am a college student and I have to take writing classes. And when my professors have always told me is to, if you are writing something about anything that you already know about, that you are already passionate about, you can, like, write the book about it for days. You need to write it as your reader was born yesterday, has never heard of it before. That's what I don't like when people say something like, you obviously didn't read the comics. No, they didn't. And they shouldn't have to understand it. And yeah, you can explain it to them, but you don't have to explain it to them and like downgrading them at the same time. So what I'm getting at here is they should have made it a little bit more easier to understand all the fourth wall breaks. Make it less like she was the way she was narrating. Like they made the fourth wall breaks her pretty much narrating the show, if that makes any sense. And I feel like they could have gone about it a little bit differently. So piggybacking off of that note comes the next controversy, was She-Hulk twerking. There was an end credit scene where She-Hulk twerks with Megan Thee Stallion, and everyone on social media lost their minds. And one of my favorite things is someone on TikTok getting on there and saying Stan Lee would be rolling over in his grave. But fun fact, Stan Lee had a sense of humor. And not only that, but Stan Lee and Hugh Hefner were actually friends. Like they were really good friends. And they teamed up to create Super Bunnies. Like Stan Lee made a Pamela Anderson comic, made her comic book, and made her a superhero. So Stan Lee also has his comics in Playboy magazines, and that's one of the reasons comics were in Playboy magazine. So another fun personal fact of mine, so my dad was an inventor, and there is a comic strip of my dad and in his invention in a Playboy magazine. That's pretty cool, huh? My mom has it. I need to find it though. But not everyone can say that they had a comic strip created and put in Playboy. I don't know. I thought that was cool. But Stan Lee, like I said, also has a sense of humor and probably would have thought that they were just having fun and that it was funny. I mean, I can't speak on Stan Lee's behalf. Rest in peace, Stan Lee. But yeah. And I'm just going to flat out say it because this might lose some people. I might lose some listeners, or I might lose you here, but it's the double standard for me. If it was Deadpool twerking, would have been that big of a deal. Everyone would have thought it was hilarious. Like, oh my God, Ryan Reynolds, you're so funny. You know, girls just want to have fun. I am a white girl with a flat trunk, if you know what I'm talking about. I don't have any junk in my trunk. I wish I could twerk. I wish I had like an ounce of sexiness. I'm not very good at being a woman. But anyways, it was just for fun. Like if I ever had a chance to be in a room with Megan Thee Stallion, I would totally be like, girl, teach me how to twerk, because I can't. But anyways, now this part wasn't necessarily a controversy, but I think it did derail She-Hulk a tiny bit. But again, I'm going to say this. I loved this part of the show, and it brings it back to what I was saying with Black Widow, and that it is them bringing in Matt Murdock as Daredevil. In one of the episodes, the ending credits, you see Daredevil's mask, and everybody's like, oh, like we're all so pumped, like, yeah, they're bringing Daredevil. And everyone said it didn't start getting good until Daredevil showed up. And that is because that's when the action started. Physically, explosion-wise, and sexually. Jen hooking up with Matt Murdock was one of the highlights. But of course, it just bothers me that in the real world we tell women that your value shouldn't be based on a man or the man you're dating. And then this happened, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. You know, like that's why I was turned off by Wonder Woman 2, is because in Wonder Woman 2, like half of the movie she was upset because she was single. Like, you're freaking Wonder Woman, man. But anyways, that's a whole other thing. I also didn't like that the whole her dating thing and the dating app thing throughout the show. Like, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it. I liked it. It would have been cool if it showed it a few times throughout the show, but it was kind of a lot. So I'm not saying completely take it out of the show. I'm just saying, like, dial it back a little bit. Because it was like every episode she was talking about the dating app and going on a date. And she went out on a date with multiple people. And I know that this is the whole feminism thing where it's like, it's okay for a man to date a whole bunch of women and they're considered the man. But if a woman dates a whole bunch of men, you know, we know what they get called. What we get called. Sorry. Because I get that. I totally get that. We get called nasty things. And that's exactly what happened to her in the show. But here's my thing. Bringing awareness to that and seeing it on a Disney show isn't going to fix that. It just made men rage even more. And it just turned people away from the show. Now, as a TV show angle, and it made it a tiny bit better, I know it was a part of the storyline in the end, but if they didn't do it as much, and then at the end dropped the bomb that the bad guy was a guy that she dated earlier in the show, it would have been more of a plot twist. It would have been more of like, because I predicted it. I kind of saw what was coming, you know, with the whole dating thing and the one guy that was like a horrible date and just kept bragging about everything that he won at an auction that was like Avengers and Wakanda related. Like, I just kind of saw the angle. I don't know. It would have just been more of like a, oh man, I did not see that coming, if they just dialed it down a bit. I have a feeling I lost a lot of listeners on that one. If you look on social media, you either loved She-Hulk or you hated it. People who know She-Hulk as a comic book character loved it because it was pretty accurate to her character. And like I said, I personally loved it because it was pretty accurate. For the last and big final controversy was the finale of the show. It was literally a giant wall break. There was no epic battle, no epic kicking the bad guy's ass battle. It was a wall break. She-Hulk literally made it like she paused the show, went to the Disney Plus home screen. Everyone wondered if they sat on the remote. They were like, what's going on with my TV? She climbed out of her show and like went into the Disney studio and talked to Kevin. But Kevin was a robot. That scene was funny though. She was just picking things apart on things we all ask about Marvel. Like, what's up with all the daddy issues? The ball that dropped was at the end when Bruce brought out his son, Scar. And I think it's just another person that they're bringing in for Young Avengers, because Young Avengers is on the horizon. It's coming. Now, for the diamonds of the show, for the things that like were awesome on the show, is that there were two characters who need a spin-off doing adventures together in one way or another. And then at the end of the show, it could be just the two of them talking about drinks and TV shows that they're watching. And it would be the most hilarious show ever. And that is Wong, Doctor Strange, Wong, Doctor Strange's leader supreme, and Madison. She talks about getting froyo in The Sopranos. She calls Wong wongers. So she, wongers. In the episode, a different kind of wizard accidentally sends Madison to a different dimension. And the only reason she escaped is because she made a pact with a demon, which she cannot discuss, named Jake. And then Jake dropped her off at Wonger's house, and that's how they became besties. As for Madison's emotional state during this is, and I quote, "First, it was fun. Then it was scary. Then it was fun again. Then spooky, but in a fun way." She talks like a Kardashian. It's hilarious. The side characters of this show stole the show and made it so fun. I don't want people to get me wrong and think I'm doing nothing but bashing the show, because I keep saying, yes, I loved it. It was fun. That's just how I feel about the backlash it received, because you have no idea how many people asked me for this episode, like, please talk about She-Hulk. I want to know how you feel about it. I want to know your thoughts. And so that's kind of why I surrounded this episode about She-Hulk to be about the controversies, is because everybody wanted to know how I felt about it. So, again, I apologize for taking so long to get this podcast episode out. Life just got kind of crazy. I'm going to get real personal with you really quick. I have ADD. As you can tell when I'm trying to talk to you, and I'm like on one subject, and then the next it's like squirrel, and I'm getting onto a different subject. Like, we're talking about She-Hulk, and I somehow bring in Wonder Woman. Anyways, I'm also discovering things about myself at the same time. I am going to school for psychology, and I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism, and I didn't realize that one of the symptoms or side effects, or whatever you want to call it, of hypothyroidism is depression and anxiety. And ADD mixed with depression and anxiety is not great. Because when you have things like ADD, you are the type of person where you have to be doing things all the time, and if you are not successful at it, you get depressed. And then it just made me not want to do it. So that's kind of what happened here, was like, I wasn't doing the podcast because I had so much stuff going on. I would beat myself up about not being successful at it and not getting the episodes out, to the point where I would just get anxiety or depressed, and then I just wouldn't do it. And I describe my depression and anxiety as in terms of volume. So while this was going on, my depression and anxiety was very loud. Now, when it was happening, I didn't know that it was a part of my hypothyroidism. So I kind of self-diagnosed myself with anxiety and depression. And so I went to the doctor, anxiety, depression, all that stuff. I tried something to relieve the anxiety and the depression that, doctors gave me medication for it. But I have a history of medications. And it is that if I were to take something, I have the opposite effect of what it does for other people. Like, if a doctor says, here, take this, but one of the symptoms or one of the side effects is that you get extremely hyper, or you can't sleep, whatever, all that fun stuff, it will knock me out. And it's happened before. If I try to take medicine to help me sleep, it wakes me up. Like, it's just so crazy. So I took something, and I told the doctor, like, I've always been scared to take anxiety medicine or anything like that because of what has happened. So I know I'm laughing at this, and it's like funny, but like not funny at the same time once I explain it. Okay, like it's just funny. Anyways, so I took what the doctor gave me, and I had a really bad reaction to it. And when I'm telling you a really bad reaction, I thought I was gonna have to go to the emergency room. I convinced myself I convinced myself I was dying. I convinced myself that I was overdosing, even though I took like what I was supposed to take. I was the schnozberry tastes like schnozberry, tripping out. Like, the room was beyond spinning. I was hallucinating. Oh, man, it was like I might as well would have had. I should have had like a bad trip on acid. Like, and what's hilarious was when this started happening, when this started kicking in, when I started to feel like I'm not okay. I was playing Fortnite. And if you've ever played Fortnite before the round starts, there's this bus and it's like zooming over the island. And you have to jump off the bus and go to where you want to go to on the island in Fortnite. But like, I was so dazed out watching it that I felt like I was on the bus. I know. There's many more stories. Oh my gosh. It ended, I drank a whole bunch of water. I just drank a bunch of water, and then I started to calm down. I had to calm myself down over and over again. Like, it was crazy. But I am okay, obviously. It took me like 3 days to get back to normal. It was just a mess. But looking back on it, it's hilarious. Because one of the things I also did was I got hungry. And I really didn't have a whole lot in my house at the moment. Because we just had like this freeze over Texas. And we pretty much like ate everything because we were locked into our house for like a week. So the only thing I found were these mini pancakes that you get at Costco, and they are so good. They're like the size of like a silver dollar, but they're like big and poofy, right? So I made a whole bunch of those. I found peanut butter in my pantry. I found Trix cereal in my pantry. I was out of milk at this point. So I was eating dry cereal, Trix. Yeah, doesn't sound great. And I was taking the pancakes, like putting peanut butter on the pancake, and then putting Trix on the peanut butter on the pancake. So it was like pancake, peanut butter, Trix cereal. And I was just sitting in my bed eating this. Like, oh, it was so bad. It was so bad. And then I also felt like I needed to document the whole situation. And I took some videos. Super embarrassing. And I also sent some of them to my friends. I sent them to my kids. Anyways, but I sent one to my, like, I call him my Fortnite husband because we normally play Fortnite, like, every single night. And that's a whole big long story about how we actually have a connection with our teenage years that we met on Fortnite, but we had no idea that we actually grew up together. Like, we grew up, like, not together, but he lived down the street from me, and we had, like, I never met him. Like, I didn't know. Anyways, I don't know if I can explain that. I don't know if I'm explaining that very well. But anyways, this concludes my episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you aren't too mad at me about how I feel about She-Hulk. Nothing but love. Nothing but opinions. Everyone's allowed to have their own opinions. If you loved it, I loved it. If you didn't like it, if you hated it, that's fine too. That is the point of opinions. These days it's crazy how people treat you on social media when you don't agree with someone's opinions. But I don't want this here. I want nothing but love for different opinions. And so My next episode, like I said, is going to be about My Hero Academia. I'm excited about that one because I love My Hero Academia. And after that, I'm going to talk about the Scream franchise because Scream 6 is coming out soon. I binged watched a lot of movies while I was recovering. So I just want to talk about all of them. I binge watched pretty much all of the Scream movies, but I'll do a podcast episode about the important ones that you need to watch before you go see Scream 6. Because you don't need to see a lot of them. Some of them are like bleh. But anyways, please like, subscribe, and follow on whatever platform you are listening. Share with your friends. I hope it it helps us little guys out a lot. So also, again, check out Under the Apron and possibly give them some love as well. Another thing is, if you are listening on Good Pods, make sure you get on Apple or Google or whatever and leave reviews for the app, because that helps develop the app even more for us podcasters and gives us a great platform, because they actually do listen to what your opinions and what you need to say. Anyways, this is turning into a Good Pods thing. But just review Good Pods, review my podcast if you can, and I hope y'all have a great week. This ended up being longer than I thought it was going to be, but I love every single one of you. Bye!